The time is 5:30 p.m. I would like to call our work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Lawson. Here. Mr. Majors. Here. Ms. Rose,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we have committee business before us. This evening, you will hear from the Administration Committee, Budget and Finance Committee, and the Community and Economic Development Committee, as well as the Parks and Recreation Committee. Immediately following our work session, we will host a special legislative session to take action on 2 resolutions. So let's begin. We will begin with the work of the Administration Committee. Our first resolution for consideration is Resolution 34 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 34, 2023, a resolution ratifying the submission of a grant application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for the development of a cost-benefit analysis of the Paxton Creek Dechannelization Project and authorizing the city of Harrisburg to designate Marita J. Kelly as the designee for the execution of the grant agreement and related documents.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly has joined us this evening. If you wouldn't mind sharing an overview of the resolution.
Yes, thank you, President Bowers. The resolution deals with a FEMA grant for hazard mitigation to develop a cost-benefit analysis of the Paxton Creek Dechannelization Project and authorizing the city to designate myself as a designee for execution. This is a study that has long been considered by both FEMA and PEMA as of great importance because it could remove as much of 100 acres from the floodplain near the farm show area and McClay Street. So I'm not a hydrologist, but I've been involved with this project for a number of years because I was the former National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator. And I worked with Tom Hughes from PEMA and the individuals from FEMA in examining this as a project. There was an in-depth project done by PennDOT to determine the value and use of such a study, and we believe that the cost-benefit analysis would give City Council and the mayor a great deal more information as to how it could long-term benefit the city through the removal of those acreages from the floodplain.
Okay, thank you very much. I think everything seems pretty straightforward. I will open the floor to questions from my colleagues. I'll begin with Councilwoman Rawls. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. No, I agree. It's straightforward when I'm reading it, so I don't have any questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson?
I'm probably needing to be brought up to speed. So I'm reading here a dechannelization then for the Paxton Creek.
That's correct.
Okay. Where does the water come from right now to the Paxton Creek?
The Susquehanna River
Susquehanna.
predominantly. I mean, I'm not a hydrologist, so I don't know, but a lot of it is when we have a rain issue. It's the significant rain issues which occur this time of the year and sometimes early summer that creates the opportunity for that creek to fill up quickly. If you remember this, well, you probably don't, you're too young, but the 72 flood definitely was impacted largely by the Paxton Creek along Cameron Street, particularly near her, but even further north of that.
So I see it mostly covered in concrete. Is it a man-made like canal? Is that what we're dealing with?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. All right. That's where my concern was. That's everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
No questions, but as always with issues related to this agency, I am recusing myself since I am employed by the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No, do you have a sense of the timeline if it is approved? I guess if once it's approved, like what time frame we're looking at in terms of getting the information back?
Yeah, FEMA has a July 1 fiscal year. So my guess is it wouldn't commence before July 1, 2023, but would be in that budget for July 1 through June 30. So sometime within the next 12 to 18 months, hopefully sooner than that.
And is this a kind of grant where once it's approved, whoever does the work will be someone that's approved by FEMA, or will the city have a say in?
Yeah, the city will definitely have a say, but I will say that FEMA is, usually fairly assertive, and so is FEMA in a good way, making sure that the individuals that are selected for this type of in-depth cost benefit analysis also are highly qualified and meet the specifications as required by those agents.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Kelly, are there any announced partners yet as far as environmental concerns that, besides FEMA, of course, that would give their expertise? Because there is a lot in central Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I would assume the Chesapeake Bay officials would be greatly involved in this. When I was involved with the National Flood Insurance Program, it was the Chesapeake Bay that we were mainly concerned about in terms of opportunities for cleaning up the bay and so forth and so on, and the river.
All right, will there be anyone from the immediate area on the project?
Unlikely there will be, yes.
Okay, all right,
We certainly would encourage that, I would believe, but as I said, those two agencies kind of drive the bus in terms of they want to make sure we get the right expertise.
thank you for that. No further questions,
Right.
Madam President.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We'll now move to Resolution 38 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 38, 2023, a resolution appointing Mr. Seth Rubenstein to serve on the Harrisburg Planning Commission.
Thank you. I failed to move Resolution 34 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda. Mr. Rubenstein, if you wouldn't mind joining us. If you could please turn on the microphone. I'm not sure if it's on. There's a little button in the middle. Okay, and probably move it closer to you. You have to speak directly into these microphones. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. All right, it's definitely on now. Good evening, council. My name is Seth Rubenstein. I live here in Harrisburg in Midtown. Moved here a couple of years ago. Loved living here since then and very excited about the opportunity to serve on the Planning Commission.
Thank you. And what sparks your interest in serving on the Harrisburg Planning Commission? What impact do you believe you will be able to make?
Sure. There's really two parts to that, I guess, the Harrisburg part and the planning part. The planning part is I'm a longtime urbanist and just lover of cities. My background is in a mix of corporate environments related to transportation and real estate and how cities work, nonprofit and legal environments related to the same. I went to law school largely based on an interest on understanding local policy and how cities work as it relates to that. And the opportunity to apply that background and knowledge to that domain is absolutely exciting and something I'd relish. That's the planning side of things. The Harrisburg side of things is I moved here 2 years ago, have absolutely loved it, have felt welcomed as a part of the city and as a new member to the city. Feel that it's an extremely special place and city. And on the Planning Commission, I'd want to be able to listen to each side of the issue that comes before the commission learn what different folks think and be able to help make a positive impact that way, especially as it relates to proposals for growth and development and just fair, equitable urban living for folks who live here.
Thank you very much. Before I open the floor for questions from my colleagues, I always like to share the work of the committee or board for consideration. So the Harrisburg Planning Commission was established and continued pursuant to the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. Pursuant to section 7-103.2 of the codified ordinances, the commission shall be comprised of 7 members to be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of city council, and the term of each member shall be for 4 years or until a qualified successor is appointed. Section 7-103.2 of the codified ordinances provides that no more than 2 commissioners shall be reappointed or replaced within any calendar year. And the mayor of the city of Harrisburg has appointed Mr. Rubenstein to serve on the Harrisburg Planning Commission in the seat currently held by Ms. Asha Green, who has been continuing to serve an original 4-year term that was set to expire on October 27th, 2019. All members of the Planning Commission shall be residents of the city of Harrisburg, and at least 5 members of the commission shall be citizen members and shall not be officers or employees of the city of Harrisburg. I just wanted to note that. I will now open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions for you. This time, I will begin with Councilman Rodriguez. Any questions for Mr. Rubenstein?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Rubenstein. Joining or potentially joining the planning board, what innovative mechanism do you feel you can bring that could benefit the board much better?
To the process itself, honestly, I want to better observe and learn how all works sort of behind the scenes today. I think that what I'd really look to bring is a sort of cross-functional, multi-dimensional lens to thinking about the issues that come before the commission, based on some of my personal background, where I think in some ways, from a legal standpoint or a policy standpoint, from a sort of just social justice and community standpoint, from a business and economic standpoint, and from sort of an urban livability standpoint, those are a few of the ones that really resonate with me and my background, and trying to bring those together when thinking about any issue that comes up and comes before the commission and in discussing with colleagues. That's really what I'd look to focus on.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned your background, especially as an urbanist, pretty much a specialist in city planning, correct?
Not in terms of city planning directly. For me, it's been more so as it relates to technology and the role of technology in cities and transportation, real estate, and policy. To be clear, I'm not a city planner directly.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. That's what the definition of urbanist would bring up. So I just thought it.
Sorry,
Thank
didn't
you for
mean to
clarification.
mislead on
No
that
worries.
front.
Thank you for
I guess
clarifying.
aspirational and unprofessional urbanist in that sense then.
No worries. Thank you for clarifying. No further questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Just if you anticipate any potential areas of conflicts of interest between what you professionally do or personally do and the role that you're being appointed to.
Sure, appreciate the question. I do not. I live in Harrisburg. I own my home, so there's that. That's the only thing that I have in that respect in Harrisburg in terms of professionally where I'm employed. I work remotely, and the company does not have any operations in Pennsylvania.
Thank you, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
Thank you. So just to the last point, where you said the company has no operations, you mean, so there are no and the company is Open Door.
That's right.
So there aren't any agents or anyone that sell or buy properties in the city, in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania at all?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear. That was one just questions I wanted to make sure, given that, we have a large issue in Pennsylvania, particularly the city of Harrisburg, with the gotta be mindful of how I phrase it, but not just of absentee property owners, absentee landlords, but the constant turnover of buying and selling of real estate within the city. But to that end, what do you think that maybe some of your expertise could bring to the planning commission or to our region to potentially look at new ways on how we can bring technology to how business is done on that side?
Yeah, appreciate that question, council member. Just real quick to address the first part, to emphasize that, yes, that's correct. I work remotely here from Harrisburg and am employed by them, but they have no operations, buying, selling, or any other kinds of business operations in all of Pennsylvania for that matter. Harrisburg included. To your second question, I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that's hugely important, as you mentioned, for Harrisburg, incidentally, for a lot of peer cities and a lot of the rest of PA as well. I think about a couple things there. One is the role of policy and incentives and structure and being able to encourage and incentivize owner-occupied homes and enabling greater access to purchasing homes for longtime residents. I think there's ways that our rules and regulations, if you will, ranging from codes and zoning and taxes to friction and just ease of doing things, ease or non-ease of doing things, can help facilitate those kinds of goals, and can reduce or not facilitate a sort of excess of the kinds of, as you mentioned, turnover and investor-driven turnover that we don't want to see. So I think that is one area of opportunity. To your question on technology specifically, I'd think first and foremost about maybe some of the lower hanging fruit when it comes to just technology for ease of access and equity of access. Ways that, for instance, soliciting input from residents of the city can be streamlined and can be encouraged further using technology. Ways that input can be measured and monitored at scale, in addition to all of the kinds of Q&A and forums that we have. I think those are some areas where, with little to no dollars, a significant amount of impact and sort of accessibility can be achieved.
Thank you. Thank you, President Bowers. No further questions.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions for Mr. Rubenstein?
Thank you, President Bowers. I just have one question and then I guess kind of like a comment. As far as the question, how do you plan to stay cognizant and aware of the residents' needs that are here in the city? Because as the Planning Commission is an advisory board, that's something we really take into account when listening to anything that comes before us, making sure the neighborhood impact and the residents are always taken into account. So how do you plan to do that?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Also very critical. First and foremost, I think about what voices are under versus overrepresented at any given forum. And so even thinking about candidly some of the limitations, inherent limitations in scheduled forums or, a weekday evening, and who's able to particularly make their voice heard and who might not be as much. I think that just helps sort of de-bias and frame the kinds of conversations that often come up. So I think that's a framing for starters. In terms of tactically what can be done, I think it's a mix of just encouraging folks to come out when possible, soliciting input through asynchronous means, similar to Councilman Major's question or discussion a moment ago around using technology for that, and counterbalancing that with the the sort of formal proposals that often come up.
Thank you. And then just kind of a comment. If you would make it onto the planning commission, obviously you'd be taking my spot. When they came to me and said, we have someone that's interested in being on the planning commission, I was like, I'll give my spot up because I have a voice here. And I would like to make sure that residents that are looking to be involved have that opportunity. So I thank you for taking the time and lending your time, your expertise to be a part of the planning commission. I think it's very important for us to make sure that residents of different backgrounds are a part of the process. So I thank you for that. I would encourage you to do your homework beforehand, that when you get your packet, drive past the site, see what the neighborhood looks like, see what's going on around there, because that's a very important piece of making those decisions. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. It would be an honor to be able to serve on it. And on that last point, I took that for granted, but should make that explicit. Yes, the absolute first things first table stakes of anything is just seeing it with your own eyes and hearing it like voice to ear from the folks closest to it. That goes without saying, but I should say it.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and thank you, Mr. Rubenstein, for your willingness to serve. Thank you for coming before us. The only real question I have is in the Planning Commission, and I think you touched base on this. How do you figure of making a city that's going to be fair for all of the residents?
Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Basically, we got into a little bit about how you wanted to help promote homeownership. Also, you were saying looking at certain areas before making decisions to make sure that you hear the voice of the people. And I just kind of wanted to get a sense on how you plan on doing that.
Sure. So appreciate the question. A few things. I mean, tactically, most tactically, similar to a couple prior comments, I think, especially for things that have just a physical component where you can go, right? You can see it. That's first things first, just seeing a place and meeting the people that are closest to that place physically in terms of where they live. And not sure the right word, but beyond physically in terms of who it matters to and who it's most important to, emotionally, financially, culturally, in all those regards. So I think just going there, speaking with folks, that's a part of that. Another part of that is that I want to highlight, I think this might go back to a few questions ago, is recognizing that the voices that can come up and be most salient in some planning discussions or proposals are often might be not representative of all the voices most related to the issue. So that's where I think the kind of extra effort is required that I would intend to do what I just mentioned, which is just going and listening and learning for starters and making sure that I am calibrating what is being proposed with what portion of all of the views and opinions that actually represents. Where is it under or over representing a certain view?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and thank you for being here, Mr. Rubenstein, and being interested in serving on the planning committee. One question I had, and one thing I feel like sometimes, well, is an issue in Harrisburg, and it's ultimately in ways getting worse, is the parking, especially in certain areas in Harrisburg. And I would like to know, as a resident of Harrisburg who may also have parking issues and residents coming, when things come in front of you, how would you help make sure our parking doesn't get worse, but in some ways, if not better, there's some solutions in place to help?
Sure. So I'd start by thinking about what's the core driver of this issue. I definitely agree. I think everyone feels that issue whenever they're trying to park in a number of spots. I certainly do. And the core driver is basically more cars and more people relative to those spots. And so I think about, first of all, supplementary means of transportation, thinking about the role of public transit and bicycles and walking, but in particular, public transit and bicycles, since that is one of the key drivers that can enable significant improvements to, let's call it, parking availability or parking accessibility without actually forbidding, right? Something like, certain spots, or investing with dollars in something like more parking spots. So I think that looking at that white space of those supplementary means is huge. They're also huge from an environmental standpoint and often from a cost and accessibility standpoint. So that's one. The second is in terms of the actual parking requirements. I think just going back to the drawing board and understanding all of the rules and regulations we have in place. This ties into a part of the earlier conversation around incentives and friction. What are areas of parking and ways to get permits for those parking, or what requires a permit that can be more or less easy or more or less expensive in a way that encourages the use we want. I think just reviewing the data on that in terms of what is actually being used, how easy and expensive are those kinds of permits and spots, and are those the areas that we want to encourage or want to discourage in a way that promotes other kinds of goals.
Thank you. That was all I had.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us this evening. I would like to move Resolution 38 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
also, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Council, for your time.
You're
Appreciate
welcome. Thanks. I'd also like to thank Vice President Green, not only for her extended time serving as a commissioner with the Harrisburg Planning Commission, but for also vacating her seat for a resident who is interested. Thank you very much for your time and for your interest in providing an opportunity for somebody else. We'll now move to Resolution 39 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 39, 2023, a resolution appointing Mr. Jason Graves to serve on the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority.
Thank you. Mr. Graves, could you please join us?
Good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you? If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for
Yes.
those that are listening or watching.
Yes, I'm Jason Graves. I'm the Director of Business Development for the City of Harrisburg.
Yes. Okay. This resolution is for your appointment to serve on the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority. So I'll just review the work of the authority. The Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority is a joint municipal transportation authority, and it's organized under the Municipality Authorities Act. The purpose of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority is to carry out the operation of mass transportation service and all other transit and transportation-related services to the counties of York, Adams, Franklin, Dauphin, Cumberland, and the city of Harrisburg, and for any Pennsylvania municipality who calls upon the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority for assistance. The city shall appoint 2 members up to the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority. The mayor has been notified by the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority of a vacancy in a current city term. So the mayor, pursuant to the Municipality Authorities Act, has appointed you, Mr. Jason Graves, to serve as a Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority board member for the city to serve the remainder of a 5-year term that began on December 1st, 2022. I just wanted to note that. Just curious, what impact you believe that you will be able to make serving on this regional authority.
I believe that an impact that I can make could be something that could be beneficial for not just for the area, but also for the city. As we do know, we all know that there is a lack of transportation in a lot of the areas that we do have. And I wouldn't say an influence, but having an ear to listen to from coming from the city and actually living from the city. I can basically explain a lot more in detail of how those, how we're actually missing those needs within an area. Again, transportation is a big feed that you can actually have that actually grows economic development. Without that, you don't have it. It's a lacking thing that we do have, not just in the city, but within the entire region.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor to questions from my colleagues. This time I'll begin with Councilman Majors. Any questions for Mr. Graves?
Well, I guess the first question I have is for the administration. It's noted in the resolution that there's a vacancy. In we speak to which vacancy there is. So it sounds like there was sounds like it's due from a recent appointment that was made, or was it
You had the council recently appointed these mayor's prior special assistant.
Okay,
There's a rule under the code that if you miss a certain number of meetings, it's deemed a vacancy automatically. The message that came back to the mayor was that she had not attended, and therefore there's a vacancy.
okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I have clarification there on the vacancy. Then, first of all, thank you, Mr. Graves, for stepping up and being willing to serve on this board. Because the first question is, can you just speak to any public transportation? Do you use the current public transportation, and do you use it for leisure, or the type of travel you may use the regional transportation here in our area?
I haven't in some time, but I know talking to quite a few people, I know a lot of people don't understand how the transportation system works a lot of times, especially when people don't live in the actual area and don't use it. I could say I used to use it quite a lot. I had an uncle of mine who actually drove CAT for a long time. He would pick me up a lot of times. That's how I got enthused to actually using it here and in a couple other areas in other cities. So public transportation is a part of life.
Okay, and then I guess in some of the conversations that you have had thus far, particularly in your role currently, you speak to some of the your expertise now would be able to bring to the authority and in terms of improving ridership and the service within the city of Harrisburg.
Yes, there is I would say it's a big disservice for the city of Harrisburg, and like I said, in a lot of other areas, because it's for a region. For the accountability for bringing in economic development growth into an area, transportation is a big need. It's like a #1 need. Without that, you can't grow a sustainable area. You can't grow a sustainable city. Again, you have walkable areas that we honestly don't have at this point. Transportation to get to and fro a lot of places, you're looking at mostly about 3 hours riding the bus in certain areas, and everything has to come into the city to actually venture out. So to actually bring that into a home, to actually bring, I would say, awareness to how we can actually help the city versus hindering it, to actually grow everything so we can actually grow as an actual region itself. That's one thing that I would love to actually bring to the table and actually bring my influence to that.
Okay, I'll defer to my other colleagues. So thank you for your willingness, and thank you, President Bowers.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No, just a request, if you don't mind keeping council abreast of the proposals that come before you. And if there are opportunities where you need council input in making decisions or recommendations.
Yes.
Stated.
Okay. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Graves, for joining us this evening. Going into the rapid transit experience, do you have any ideas that could better the transportation needs of our disabled population?
Oh, man. I would have to look into more as far as like how the ride share works, as far as what the accessibility is to that. I'm pretty sure that it's like basically few and far between as far as like how it is just for regular parents transportation for the regular residents. That's something I'm gonna have to like look more into, because I know that's actually a little bit down as well. But again, it's something that's gonna have to basically to look at more closely to see how we can fix that.
Thank you for that. And then do you look forward, or do you have any ideas to give incentives like to our senior population who may struggle with transportation needs?
That's another thing that we're gonna have to probably look into. Again, transportation, especially mass transit, is supposed to be a lower form of payment so people actually get around. And as far as like with incentives for the elderly, as far as like passes or anything like that, should be distributed for like use. So you can actually, because there are a lot of elderly who don't have vehicles who actually rely on public transportation. So that is something else that needs to actually be looked at as well.
Appreciate your answers. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
I don't have any questions for you at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Certainly. And thank you, President Bowers. And thank you, Mr. Gray, for deciding to stand up and take this position. The question I have, what are your big ideas? My guess is that you're by the way you've answered, you don't necessarily believe that we're as efficient as can be. How do you think you'd like to attack that?
Oh, man. First things first, talk about like the initial cuts that were made previously to a lot of the routes. That's first and foremost. The thing is, you need to have more routes and have more sustainability in a lot of areas, because again, there are a lot of areas that don't actually get the actual transportation needs met, because you actually have to go to another location to actually walk, or they're not walkable and so forth. That's again, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's a long question I can answer. I could probably go on and on about that, but it's just trying to make it more comfortable and more accessible for people to actually use the transportation means that we actually have, to actually have more, so we can actually use more. Because again, transportation is a mode for anything to come into an area. That's one thing everybody looks at when they look into a certain area. Do I have transportation? Do I have transportation? So you have a lot of areas that you want to move into, but if there's no transportation, basically that's like you're picking and choosing what you have to do.
All right, well, thank you very much. That's what I had.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions for Mr. Graves?
Thank you. And thank you for being here, Mr. Graves, and being willing to be a part of the transportation board, even though it wasn't something that you were ultimately presented with at first. But doing some research and understanding, you had some whys on, how you could help, and what some of your big ideas were, but you answered most of my questions. I too do want to see the transportation system be better. I don't know what's missing, a lot is, but I don't feel like it's as accessible to seniors or ADA accessible, or just even to residents, period. It feels a little hard to catch the bus, know where to get dropped off at. You could get lost even though you know where you're at, so thank you.
Very welcome.
Mhm.
Thank you. Are there any other additional questions for Mr. Graves? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I would like to move to add Resolution 39 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. You have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, you too. The final resolution before the Administration Committee for discussion this evening is Resolution 40 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 40, 2023, a resolution appointing Ms. Joan Gray to serve on the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you. Ms. Gray, could you please join us? Evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, Ms. Joanne Gray.
Joanne Gray. I was born and raised here in Harrisburg. Went to school here. I raised my daughter here. Oh, you can't hear me? I was born and raised here in Harrisburg. Went to school here, raised my daughter here. Since 2002, I worked for the city of Harrisburg, the Harrisburg Authority, which is now Capital Region Water. I want to change the capacity of how I serve the community. I think I'm ready to move from employee to doing something different.
It's wonderful. Thank you for your interest in getting involved. So I just have one other question before I open the floor to my colleagues regarding your interest in serving on the zoning hearing board.
I think I can bring a resident's perspective. I'm a quick learner. I think once I'm up to speed on the codes, I'd be able to work with the board members, make sound decisions on whatever cases are brought in front of the board.
Thank you. As I did with Mr. Rubenstein, I'll do the same review of the zoning hearing board. The city of Harrisburg adopted a substantial revision of the zoning code in July of 2014 with an effective date of July 29th, 2014. So pursuant to the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg, section 7-323.4, consistent with the requirements of the Pennsylvania municipalities, planning code, city council shall appoint the members of the zoning hearing board. Appointees to the board shall serve for a term of 3 years with staggered terms, and the city previously determined the staggered terms under the 2014 zoning code should each be deemed to have an effective date of July 29th, with original seats expiring in 2015, 2016, and 2017 respectively. A vacancy currently exists on the zoning hearing board due to one member's term expiring on December 31st, 2022. Ms. Gray should city council move forward with Ms. Gray's appointment, she will serve the remainder of a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Just wanted to review the work of the board and review the term. So just for everyone's reference, I believe it was Miss Ann Bianco's term that expired at the end of 2022 that you will then be filling that role. Maybe one more question before I open it up. Having served as a member of the zoning hearing board prior to my service with city council, I guess similar to the planning commission, resident and community neighborhood impact was always a consideration before the board in any decisions that we made outside of the 7 criteria required for either a variance or special exception. So just wondering, you mentioned that you could bring a resident's perspective. How would you or how do you expect to interact with neighbors or members of various communities throughout the city who may have either an interest in support of a potential project or opposition?
I encourage you the board meeting. So readily available as much as I can.
Okay, just curious. Thank you. I'll now open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions for you. This time I'll begin with Vice President Green. Any questions for Ms. Gray?
I don't have any questions in particular, but thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. And Ms. Gray, basically in keeping the eye of a resident, as you are approached and you see certain neighborhoods, how would you reflect your decisions to your constituents? And it sounds similar to the question that President Bowers asked, but I want to get a sense for how you use that I as a resident, like when you see something coming down the pipe. Not so much as about the conflict, but like how do you think you'll view these things? Like give me an idea on how a resident would look at, let's say, we have possibilities of Airbnb getting some type of regulation against like the short-term rentals. Like what would you think there? Just as a for instance.
Again, making myself available to answer questions, having banter back and forth, trying to listen to and just being an ear and hearing what the issues are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions, just thank you for wanting to serve. I think we need more residents on our boards because it gives us a way, and it gives them a way to have a voice within the community, but also what they're learning and what they're gaining from that board, being able to go back and push that into the community, because there's a lot of not knowing, and you don't know what you don't know. So you coming forward wanting to serve on the board, it could push someone else in your community to also serve on another board and show them that it's possible, you can do it, and this is how it can help our community. So I just thank you for that. I know you're going to learn a lot. It's probably nerve-wracking just answering these questions right now, but you're here doing it, and that's bravery. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions for Ms. Gray?
Thank you. Excuse me. No questions for Ms. Gray.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Just the same one I asked Mr. Rubenstein earlier. Can you identify potential areas of conflicts of interest between either your professional work or your personal life and the role on the zoning board?
There are none. My current capacity at CRW, I'm not a decision maker. I don't write policy.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions for Ms. Gray?
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Gray, thank you for joining us this evening, and definitely appreciate your willingness to serve. I feel the administration has selected a few qualified members that I have some confidence in, but just as a reminder, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code does inflict power for council to appoint 3 alternate members if we feel as though they're not up to par, but I don't feel that's the case here. How do you feel in your practices you can ensure the process is equitable, fair, and honest for everyone having a hearing?
By following the code to the letter. Working again with the other board members to make sure we're making sound decisions based off of what's written.
Okay, thank you for that. No further questions.
Thank you. And just a reminder, the zoning hearing board appointments are council appointments. And actually the former alternate that was appointed, James Hobbs, is now serving as a member. So I just wanted to clarify that.
No, technically, he's still.
Is he still an alternate?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought since there was a vacancy and there would only have been.
This is the first vacancy because the whole new board was appointed at the same time.
Oh, that's right. And there are 2 vacancies at the end of the year? One?
One each year.
Okay,
So, but well.
one at the end of this
Assuming
year.
one is elected to a higher office, that will happen sooner rather than later. So, but both are running.
Right, there's some potential for 2, but one
Potential.
expires in
Right, the one
2023.
expires December 31st, 2023. I knew that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Point of information, Madam President, the terms of office shall be 3 years and shall be fixed so that the term of office of one member shall expire each year.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for being here, Ms. Gray. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns for Ms. Gray? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I would like to move to add resolution 40 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for approval. So thank you very much for your interest in serving and for being here this evening. Thank you. This concludes the work of the Administration Committee. We will now move to the Budget and Finance Committee. I will defer to our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Vice President Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. I'll just give the Budget and Finance Department a little time to get up here to give us a presentation on the quarterly reports. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Vice President Green and Madam President Bowers and the members of council. We're very excited to present to you our first quarter milestones. We had quite a few this quarter, so we're very happy to present that. Just let me know if you're hearing me okay, if you need me to speak closer to the mic. Well, the first item of business is I would like to identify for you our staff and the race and sex of our staff. We have, I believe, a very diverse organization. I know that's a little hard to see, but we feel very fortunate. We're largely a female operation with 2 males joining us. That doesn't happen too often. So, but I must admit they're 2 very, very talented and very, very helpful male counterparts that assist the rest of our team. So we also have 3 African Americans out of the total of 8 employees. Our budget manager, Mr. Brooks, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us this evening. Our brand new employee, which I hope to bring to a council meeting here very soon, Tracy Fountain, is the new financial analyst that just began, formerly with the Auditor General for 32 years. And we're very proud, and she's already played an enormous role in helping us out with some policies and procedures with her experience at the Auditor General's office. And Leandra Smith Manning is the Special Assistant to the Director of Budget and Finance. And I do think we have a very good, diverse team. And I want to note that there are 2 vacancies. The first vacancy is oh, I forgot to mention Rebecca. I'm sorry, Rebecca Vollmer, Hillary, and myself. Rebecca will be able to hire an assistant. Thank you for adding that to the budget this year. She just finished the job description. It was approved by the Human Resource Director, Joni Willingham, and that position is now being posted for hire. So we're hoping to hire that position very soon. And the second position is actually a union position, Auditor 2. Brian and I and Ms. Fountain were able to interview a candidate yesterday that actually meets the majority of our requirements. We may have 1 or 2 additional individuals that we'll be interviewing for the Auditor 2 position, but that'll bring our total complement to 10. It's probably the first time in many years that we've been this full as a complement for the finance budget and finance department. So I'm very, very proud of that. So if you have any questions on the complement, I'd be happy to address them at a later point. Well, the first huge milestone for us was the payment of the repayment of the forbearance for AMBEC. We're very proud that Brian was able to help us execute. I was one of the signatories on the execution of the payment. As you know, this is a long drawn out circumstance with general obligation bonds and notes, DNF. And yeah, the city issued the series back in '97. Unfortunately, we had a crisis in which the city defaulted on the bonds. That's the next slide. And so we're happy to see that we were able to make a very large payment in December and the final payment of 8.3 million in March. So we're very pleased that on March 15, 2023, the city planned to pay and has made the payment of 8.3 million. And this actually takes our bond payments to approximately 1.5 million remaining for the remaining years. And this would be the redevelopment authority's Verizon bond for the Verizon Tower, which used to be the Bell Tower and so forth, which the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania now Department of Human Services resides at. And so, so we're very pleased that the bonded debt for the city is so minimal that we're down to just slightly over $1.5 million. So that's an enormous milestone. We reported that, by the way, in the ICA report, which is going to be coming up here in a little bit in this discussion. So thank you, council, because you were enormously involved with the mayor and the council and making sure that that AMBAC payment was fully executed. And now we no longer have that issue to deal with. We're nice and healthy and fiscally sound in terms of the bond market, and so forth. The DCD Strong Plan reporting, you may be aware that there is a quarterly report to the Commonwealth Court Judge Ledbetter. I had been the author of that report for a number of years since 2017, and I was still semi-author of it today when I was writing the operation component of that report for DCED. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So the DCD Strong Plan updates, we completed a fourth quarter 2022, which was due in mid-January to DCED. That report was finalized, and Brian, our accounting manager, spent an extensive amount of time preparing the year-end report for DCED, which was filed with the court approximately January 20th, 2023. And then just yesterday, no, I think Friday, Brian provided the first quarter 2023 reports to myself. And then each department sends to me a summary of how they played a role in updating the strong plan, the DCD Strong Plan, and in improving the activities and operations of their tasks. So that was presented to DCED today because the Commonwealth Court Judge will likely receive this report from DCED around April 25th, I believe is when it's to be submitted. So we do have an extensive amount of time that we spend on reports to DCD and the ICA. Brian does the lion's share of the financial management related reports, which are the profit and loss statements and the revenue and expenditure report for particularly the general fund and the neighborhood services funds. But there are other funds that he reports on for that, probably state liquid fuels and a few others. So, so that is an interesting task that we do perform each quarter. In addition to the DCD Oversight Board, we have the ICA Oversight Board. They present a report. The ICA board itself, the chairman, Audrey Carter, and her board present to the Pennsylvania General Assembly by April 30th, an extensive report of the prior year's activities. We, namely Mr. Brooks and Ms. Fountain, have spent the last several weeks preparing the updates to the financial schedules that were in last fall's report that we submitted to the ICA, because the ICA submits a report to the General Assembly. And then interestingly enough, the ICA had met with us and had asked us if we could move our report, the DCED, the City of Harrisburg's ICA report from mid-year to actually August 31st. And the mayor had agreed to that. And so we now have a formal agreement with the ICA that now, and the reason why we did that, Vice President Green, was to dovetail with the mid-year report we present to City Council, so that it makes more sense that we have a full half year of activity in order to report to the ICA, so that when we do our forecasts through 26 and 27, it's a more valid forecast because we have a full half year of the current fiscal year. So that was part of the reason and rationale behind that decision. So the department, we provide monthly and quarterly reports as well to the ICA. I'm an ex officio for the ICA board. You may know that. And I sit on that board and meet with them each month as required. Usually a member of the mayor's management team comes and presents. This month it'll be Mr. Graves again. He's a real popular fellow tonight. And so we're very pleased with that. Some of the things that we report on are the general fund revenues and expenditures, neighborhood services revenues and expenditures, state liquid fuels revenues and expenditures, and other major fund expenditures. And keep in mind that includes the profit and loss statement, which would include the opening and ending balances for all those funds, is in that larger report that we will file on August 31st with the ICA. These reports are very valuable to everyone because the oversight board is able to keep track of both our debt service and our capital projects and so forth and so on. So that is something that we're committed to, and we are working almost daily with the ICA to provide the appropriate financial management reports that they request. Again, another set of reporting that we do quarterly and we have done for the fourth quarter is the ARPA program reporting that is required by the federal government, since we do have ARPA funding, nearly 48 million, approximately 38 million remaining. You held the public meetings last week to include more important information and input from the public. The fourth quarter report was filed on time on January 17th, which gave us the entire history of what we did in the first quarter. Largely what we did was we wrote off the 8.6 million in revenue loss, which compared to the public safety salaries, Parks and Rec salaries, and some planning and development salaries was what made up that 8.6. We also provided $5,000 bonuses to both policemen and firemen last year as part of the ARPA. And most importantly, and again, thank you, Vice President Green, for working with us to repair the HVAC system, which at one time was 1.5 and ballooned to 5.5 million in that 3 or 4 year period as we waited to try to replace it. And now that was something that was included in last year's ARPA funding. Now, of course, you have before you the list of multitude of recommendations from City Council. I mean, from the mayor to City Council. And of course, you had your hearings last week. So I'm sure there'll be some future recommendations as to how we expend the remaining 38 million. My team sits ready to assist in any way, shape, or form. If we can provide estimates, revenue projections, things like that, would be happy to do so. And then, of course, the remaining quarterly reports will be filed timely. The second, third, and fourth report. The fourth quarter report, of course, won't be filed until January 2024. Another major milestone, which is the first time in 30 years this has happened, is the transition to Tyler Technology Munis migration. And guess who was first up at that? It was the Budget and Finance Department, because we pretty much manage the general ledger system for accounting, budgeting, and purchasing. And I have to give credit to our purchasing officer for her steadfast efforts in training the many department buyers who buy products for the individual departments. And trust me, we trained and retrained and retrained again. And Brian, of course, he was extremely involved in helping us to even get to first base with the Munis program, because he helped to determine what would be the opening balances for the general fund, neighborhood services fund, state liquid fuel fund, and the other funds. So, you know, he had to do this in an absolute rush because he only had about 10 days from January 1st to January 10th to close out last year's books. I don't think he slept for about a month and a half. So kudos to Brian again for his steadfast efforts in helping to bring the Munis system forward And more importantly, we have to give our colleagues in IT, Mr. Bortner and his team, for working with us to get to the phase of where we are right now. I think everyone's pleased. Our next phase, just so you know, is the capital fixed asset system, which Brian is going to again lead. And then Hillary is working with myself and Austin Griffith from Public Works to do the first inventory of both capital assets and some high valued assets, but maybe not necessarily defined as capital. So that'll be sort of our next step with the Tyler Technology Munis migration. This next summary is, I can't say enough about Rebecca Vollmer. I mean, she has been a phenomenon, and I call her the city grant writer extraordinaire. Because as you can see, I just gave a real brief summary of the CDBG-CV, which was $13 million for our park system, which we're going to hear about in the next meeting here in a few minutes. They have weekly meetings. They meet with Dawood. They meet with Civitas, who is our advisor on the federal grants. They're about to issue a opportunity for Mr. Navarro to assist with the development of those grants and the ADA accessibility related to the CDBG-CV grants. The PCCD LLES, they're currently reviewing the budget and performance metrics for the Pennsylvania Crime and Delinquency grant. For DCNR, she has met with CRW, and luckily we're able to cover some of the costs for the chutes and ladders for CRW with some former grant funds, and Brian helped us kind of dredge that up and figure out exactly how we could utilize that. Also, some other grants involved the CAGA and also the Greenbelt Trail location, which you guys approved earlier this fiscal year, may have been late last fiscal year. DCD, the multimodal east-west connection project for Walnut and Chestnut Street is still being reviewed, and hopefully we'll be moving forward. We may be back with a request for some additional funding on that. And then we also have hopefully finalized the RACP for Mulder Square, and we're hoping to have the complete project progress reports submitted to you, and hopefully Brian can request the final payment. We're hoping to do that. And that, of course, is the Office of the Budget, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then the gaming grant, lucky for us, we did get a substantial amount for the gaming grant, and that will fix the City Hall atrium bathrooms and help us to buy some new police cars. Now, she gave me a list of about 6 pages with greater detail, but I don't want to spend too much time torturing you with that. But if you have any detailed requests on any of this information, we can provide it to your team, and we certainly can provide the summary, Ms. Bowers, to Mr. Truesdale to make sure he can make it available to you. That's for the grants. And that's pretty much our presentation on the major milestones that we feel we've met in the first quarter. It's been a busy, busy quarter, and we still have a long way to go with the munis, but in migration, but we believe we're up to the task. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate all the work that your team's done so far this year. Seems like you've been quite busy. I don't have too many questions as of right now, but I will start with 1 or 2 before I open up to my colleagues. I guess one of the first questions, can we just get like an update on like the current cash balance for the city? I don't know if you have that on hand. If not, is it something that you can email to us?
Why do you think I brought him?
Yes.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Marita. Good evening, everyone. City Council. Thank you, Chair Green. Marita, you mentioned my name quite a bit, but it's definitely a collective effort in our finance and accounting office. And I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention, Marita mentioned him, Steve Bortner in IT. You know, about sleepless nights. Actually, he spared me a few sleepless nights just with his support and our efforts. This won't be very drawn out, but I wanted to give you an update on both the general fund and the neighborhood services fund. For the general fund specifically, through the first quarter, our year-to-date revenues and expenses compared to last year, year-to-date, are up over 50%. Roughly equivalent in those percentages, each revenue and expense. Why is that? That is on the revenue side. You might recall when we did and presented and went through the 22 budget process last year, the delay with the mayor reopening the budget and reforming it for 2022. That delayed the real estate tax billing for 22. This year, of course, it's unfolding timely as per usual. And the discount period real estate tax payments are up over $7 million compared to prior year. So that's the big influx of revenue. And then quite simply on the expenditure side, the increase in expenses is attributed to, hope you don't get tired of hearing about it, but it's the AMBAC payment that we did back in this time last month. That was the 8.3 million. With that, general fund expenses through the first quarter, if we back out the AMBAC payment of 8.3 million, in total, the budget, the 23 budget that's been expended is 24.65%. Very nice percentage when you think about the quarters. So that's a good indicator of our plan. In a similar vein, on the neighborhood services fund side, that also is working out on a quarterly basis too. Percentage of budget used through March is 24.8% for neighborhood services. And sticking with neighborhood services, the cash position there, at the beginning of this year, the position in cash was approximately 7 million. And right now at the end of March, it's right around 7.5. The last item, and Chair Green, it goes to your initial question about cash position. Revenue's been posted through today, and cash right now in the general fund approximates 23.9 million. We've had a check run, we've had a payroll already this month, and that figure is after those occurrences. We still have one more check run happening on the 27th. Of course, the payroll date is the same. So in doing a projection, in backing out those items that are coming up, and then also we have a significant debt service payment occurring it's due May 1st, but the funding will happen this month. It'll hit our books this month, and it pertains to the Verizon Commonwealth Tower bonds, which it's HRA, the Redevelopment Authority, issued that debt, as you are aware, and the city guarantees the payment. We will be doing our minimum payment is $1,250,000 to support the maturity coming due on May 1st. And when you back out that significant payment, that takes our cash down to 21 million. And you may remember last year when we were reviewing what scenarios to consider for the AMBAC payment, we did a projection about what we thought cash would be the end of April. And that projection was 22.2 million. Compared to what I said right now of 21 million. So that's a gap, not really a gap. It's a difference of 1.2 million. We're going to make that up and probably a little bit then some, because right now this month is a big revenue generator for mercantile business privilege taxes, with tax returns coming in to the tax and enforcement office. And I think we'll achieve at least $750,000 to $1 million there. And that leaves us short of the projection we did by about $400,000 to $450,000. And certainly we'll have other revenue items coming in over the course of the next couple of weeks. We may even realize additional discount real estate tax. So making a long story short, I think we're going to hit our projection of cash that we were really, mulling over last year for the general fund. That's my summary. Anybody
Thank
have
you,
any
Brian.
comments or questions?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that update. The other question I have, I think is more for you, Marita. Just what are some of the key goals that you look forward to for the second quarter?
Well, one of the key goals is to get that fixed, capital fixed asset system up and running in Munis. It will give us a much better picture and how we can go to the next step, which is to actually develop a formal capital improvement program, which we did begin last year, but because my staff was hindered a little bit because I was so low on staff, I didn't get to do as much as we would like. But this year, we actually have money in the budget for a professional consultant to help guide us. But he or she could not be helpful to us if we didn't have the capital asset management system in Munis. So we really think that's going to be one of our major goals, is to really be able to give you a better perspective when we get to the budget in December on capital assets and what type of investments you may wish to make. The dilemma we face is right now we still can't borrow money, so the bond market is not available to us at this moment. But what we hope to have is very good information that if we have to spend as we go for capital assets, we can at least give you the best possible information with the best possible opportunities to continue to add value to, public works, public safety, parks and rec, and so forth.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. I'm going to start to my far left with Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for joining us this evening, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Bryan. Ms. Tracy Fountain, what was the position?
Financial analyst.
Financial analyst. Thank you for that. And would this presentation be available for public upon request, or could it be put
Oh,
on the
absolutely. It's
website?
a PowerPoint. I'd be happy to share it, and I'll send it over to Jared tomorrow.
Perfect. If we
I
can
would
get
hope
that,
to get to them today, but we had a few cogs in the wheel that slowed us down a little bit, so I
Absolutely.
apologize.
no worries. If we can get that on the website, that'd be phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very happy to do so.
No further questions.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
Thank you. Well, thank you for the presentation. It was thorough, and I think between the presentation and Vice President Green's questions, the ones I had really pertain to cash position and and I'm glad we at least now we have paid off the AMPAC debt with the help of everyone on the whole team. Those were the main questions that I had regarding cash position. And Brian, you were only off just a little bit, but I mean, you weren't really off in terms of your projection in terms of where we would be after repaying it after the first quarter. So I'm glad those numbers came in, as close to estimate as we possibly could. So thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for your reporting. I'm excited that we've added budget and finance to our quarterly reporting. I think that'll be helpful once we get to the mid-year budget review. And then again, at the end of the year when we work through the budget process for next year. So thank you.
And we're very appreciative, President Bowers, that you permitted us to present this more regularly. I think it does benefit everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson.
Thank you. I have no questions. Everything's been asked and answered, and I appreciate the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you, Vice President Green. Thank you both for being here tonight. I don't have any questions either. It was a very thorough report. I think my sentiments are the same, just with putting it on the website for the public to view so they have the information too.
Absolutely. Very happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
Please.
Thank you. Is there any word on the PCCD grant for the GVI initiative?
I think there is. Hold on just a second.
Thank you.
I believe Ms. Ballmer's here to update us.
Oh, she is?
Yes, please
Oh,
feel free.
Sorry. Please, I hope I didn't steal your show.
Thank you, Ms. Ballmer. Could you speak into the mic, please?
The two PCCD grants that we were awarded last year, we're working through them. The GVIP now we've gone through, we work with PCCD staff to figure out the budget and what's actually awarded and the scope and all those things. So GVIP has moved on to, we're good there. So we're gonna get a grant contract. The initial request was 1.262501, and that remains the number that they will award. So we have to do a lot of sort of internal metrics. So when we go to the PCCD system and to the e-grant system, they have their requirements that they want us to say, you have to report out on X, Y, and Z. And then they ask us to implement our own requirements that we say, well, we will also report out on, A through L. So we've done that. And that is done. So the GVIP is done. The grant contract has been created. So now it needs to go through legal for signatures. The next one up is the LLES. That one, we've down that number was originally 2.2 million. Now it's 1.566 million, just because some of the things that we said we initially would do, we can't do anymore. So now we're kind of negotiating about budget. So it's probably more information than you wanted. But for GVIP, we're full speed ahead. Everything's been agreed. The grant contract has been created. Now we just need to have signatures.
It may not be a question for you, perhaps, Neil. Do you know the intentions of when the planning will start for the group violence intervention? Like when we could start reaching out to the community and getting those people in place?
I am the wrong person to ask.
Right. Thank you. I tried. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for your very thorough report and all the work you do.
Thank you. Appreciate your kindness.
And I will turn it back over to President Bowers.
Thank you very much, Vice President Green. We will now move to the work of the Community and Economic Development Committee. I will defer to our Community and Economic Development Committee Chair, Councilwoman Daniels.
Thank you. If the city could, if the city's representative, if we could read Resolution 37, 2023 to the record.
Resolution 37, 2023, a resolution approving the preliminary / final land development, lot consolidation and subdivision plan for 2151 to 2161 North 4th Street, submitted by Gary Lenker with Tri-County HDC to consolidate and re-subdivide the various lots comprising the project site into 5 separate parcels on which affordable townhomes will be constructed, along with associated improvements.
Thank you. If the city could give us a brief background on this resolution.
Sure. So the issue here before City Council tonight is related to a proposal for the development of 5 affordable for sale townhomes at 2151 to 2161 North 4th Street. The project is actually currently comprised of 6 different parcels, so it will involve a consolidation and then re-subdivision of that parcel into 5 parcels on which the townhomes will sit. The project site is currently just a vacant lot between an existing building at the end of the block and then a row of townhomes further to the south. Behind it, is Atlas Street. Between Atlas Street and the project site is another vacant lot. The project required the approval of various zoning relief requests from the zoning hearing board, which the applicant did receive. That was related to the width of the lots that were created as part of the subdivision. And then also relief from the off-street parking requirements because they have because they have 5 units and they will be affordable. They will be required to have 3 spaces. So that was the relief that was granted by the zoning hearing board. Overall, the kind of current condition of the site is relatively overgrown lot with it's kind of accumulating trash. The project will be a big improvement on the existing conditions of the site. And as noted, the units will be for sale and they will be affordable through the city's affordable housing program. So we do feel that this will be a significant benefit to the neighborhood specifically and the city generally. With that being said, the Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant will receive approval from the Zoning Hearing Board for the accompanying variance and special exception applications. And as noted, they did receive that approval. And if possible, given the topography of the site, the applicant should consider building a design with an entrance threshold at sidewalk level to ensure visitability of the structures, allowing ADA access for residents and visitors. And it should be noted that the site kind of slopes from back to front, and the existing townhomes on this side of the block all have elevated entrances with small stoops. And so it's probably difficult to do that from a front entrance perspective, but it's possible to have a 0 threshold entrance on the rear so that they can be accessed from the back. The project should consider the construction of a hardscape grocers alley to provide access to the rear of the properties, as it can provide access to the rear of the HRA owned lots fronting Atlas Street and connect the subject properties with parking on those lots, or provide access to the rear of the units developed on those lots in the future. So as noted, there's a vacant lot behind the site between that and Atlas Alley, and that may be a site for development in the future. And then the applicants will ensure the sidewalk is repaired to its full width between the rear of the curb and the property line to match the sidewalk widths to the north and south, which are built, which extend between the back of the curb and the front of the building faces. And the applicant will coordinate with the city arborist regarding the planting of any new trees on site or in the surrounding rights of way, including the design of the tree pits. The Planning Bureau is recommending the planting of 2 trees along North 4th Street. The Planning Commission recommended that the City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The proposed project will result in the development of currently vacant and blighted properties with quality affordable housing, meeting an urgent need in the city generally and the neighborhood specifically. The project will result in the enhancement of the surrounding rights of way, including the construction of ADA compliant pedestrian infrastructure and planting of street trees. Project will meet all applicable zoning regulations and be constructed such that the building mass design, massing, and site configuration will represent compatible infill development that maintains the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The project will result in the improvement of currently vacant overgrown lots with affordable units. And finally, the project advances the purpose of the RM zoning district provided in chapter 7-305.4C of the code, as it provides development at medium densities that will not adversely affect the stability of the area, and advances chapter 7-301.27 of the zoning code by protecting the residential neighborhood and providing diverse housing opportunities.
Thank you. So just to be clear again, make sure I didn't mishear you. The long-term goal is shifting this land from 6 lots to 5, down to 5.
Yeah, so the site will be consolidated and then re-subdivided.
And then this is, it will be more than 4 units, so ADA compliance will be required anyways.
That may be a building code issue that I can't speak to.
Okay, so if the applicant wouldn't mind giving us a brief description about the project and timeframes for when you intend to start, when you intend to finish, who the likely customer is for the properties, and that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Daniels, and thank you for the opportunity to be before council this evening. It is my first time visiting with you since COVID, so it's been a while, and I had the opportunity to informally introduce myself to a few of the newer council members, with the exception of Councilmember Lawson. So I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Gary Lanker. I am the Executive Director of Tri-County Housing Development Corporation. We are the city's community housing development organization and have a 33-year history of creating affordable housing here in the city of Harrisburg and the surrounding region. We're very excited. This is actually our first project outside of South Allison Hill. Our footprint for the 33 years that we've been in existence has primarily been South Allison Hill. We recently completed a longtime project at 15th and Spatara Street, known as Mount Pleasant Homes, and we are getting ready to break ground on another project on Hummel Street, actually very similar to this, which would be the construction of a 5-unit townhouse to be sold to low to moderate income persons and families. Really, this project is a result of our meeting with Mayor Williams last February and her request to see affordable housing spread throughout the city of Harrisburg. And we sprang into action and met with Brian Davis of the Redevelopment Authority. That's who we're actually acquiring this property from, the city's Redevelopment Authority. And we're very excited. There will be 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath with full basements. And we will have the accessibility to the rear of the units as indicated. Other than that, our clients again are low to moderate income, which is 80% or less of the county median family. Happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Yeah, when do you plan to break ground and when do you plan to?
Thank you. So we have
project?
embarked on what we call capital stacking or obtaining funding to assist in the development. I'm proud to say that we have received a PA Department of Community and Economic Development Keystone Community Program grant, nearly $400,000. We received that late last year. We have made an application to the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency for their FAIR program, and we will not know on that until June or July of this year. So to answer your question, Council Member, we would be looking at spring to summer of next year to be able to commence. We have not had the opportunity to apply for any city funds to date on this project. We are hopeful to be able to apply for city home funds, which is typically what assists us as a community housing development organization and the years that we have worked with the city.
So I'll go ahead and open up to council members to see if they have additional questions. I'll start with Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you. And thank you for being here tonight to answer our questions and for bringing some affordable housing options to the city. I know you said low to moderate income. So how are you determining that? What would the prices of the houses possibly be? And how will you determine again who will receive them?
Well, typically what we do, specifically if we are the recipient of a city home grant through your HUD funding home grant, we would subsidize the purchase price. We would determine that affordability price point. Right now, I think we would be looking at somewhere right around $100,000 a unit. Now, I will tell you that we would probably be talking that these units will cost us more in the range of $225,000 per unit. So basically what we do is subsidize the cost with the funding we receive and to make it affordable.
Okay. And then I did see in the resolution that you were interested in using the different, I don't want to say the names wrong, it's all these MBNA, I think, or MB. So how you said you would be putting out bids or whatnot for that. I just wanted to make sure too that there were people within the community, electricians and plumbers, that are having access to being able to work on this project, because I feel like when you're from the community and you work on things within your community, you have more of a vested interest in it. And that's one of the big things that isn't happening. So how are you going to make sure you do make people in the community a part of doing this, especially if they have the qualifications to do so?
Well, first and foremost, we do a public advertisement. We typically will run in the Harrisburg Patriot News on several occasions, a solicitation to bidders, welcome and are open to all in the industry no matter what subcontractor. We're happy to receive those bids.
Okay, thank you. And my last question was, I know you said, I believe you're going to, there's steps going up to the house, correct? Because that's what's in the area. I do see that. I know this lot has been vacant for a long time. But exactly how will we make sure it's ADA accessible? Just making sure we're going to all populations within the city. Other than, I know you said the rare, but
Yeah, that's basically what we would be looking at, is utilizing the alley in the back and coming into the back of the properties. If you have parking in the rear, that's
Okay.
something we've talked to with Brian and the redevelopment authority, and then providing access that they would be, with no steps in the rear of the property.
right, okay.
I just want to add on to that. Zane Geist with Integrated Consulting, the civil site designer for Mr. Lenker and Tri-County Housing on this project. I want to point out that there's a 4-foot wide alleyway separating the very rear parcel line and then the next kind of building, the parcel line that begins there. So I think part of our conditions of approval with the planning commission was to provide improvement along there to kind of stabilize that. And then from there, we would provide more of like a ramped access to the deck in the back that would be at finished floor elevation to allow for ADA accessibility in the rear. So regardless of the parking situation, I mean, there is a means of access for ADA pedestrians that need to be able to get into these buildings. And we had similar, I think your Hummel Street townhomes that you're proposed up there had a similar kind of rear ADA accessibility set up with the front steps, similar to the layout of these homes here.
Okay. I think I may have more questions, but that's it for now. You answered them very well. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Lawson?
Thank you very much. Councilman Rawls stole some of my thunder. She took some of my questions.
Sorry.
But I want to kind of reiterate one of our concerns and just ask if you'd be willing to be intentional when putting out your request for bids, just to make sure that we are getting people that reflect the neighborhood and the community. And I understand that you're looking for the most competent and the best price that you can find, but would you be willing to be intentional in searching for people that would reflect the neighborhood that's around you?
Absolutely. We have done that in the past. And we would.
Okay, great. I love that you're providing affordable houses. I've seen the properties, haven't been in one, but they're beautiful homes. They make the neighborhood look great. So we appreciate, the ongoing support that you're putting into the city. And I don't know if you have a spitball just for anyone that may be listening of what a mortgage payment for $100,000 home would be.
Well, we would be looking at, and particularly with the city's property tax abatement program, which would, it's a big savings to these first-time home buyers, that they would not pay taxes on the improvement. They would only pay on the land. So we would be looking at, really under $1,000 for a unit like this with taxes and insurance, which I think is really great.
It sounds like it's much less than the rent on a new
It
3-bedroom townhome in this area.
It is, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice President Green?
Thank you. I don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
President Bowers?
Thank you. I have a few questions. First, you mentioned participation in the LERTA program. I just wanted to clarify that that's what you were referring to with the city's tax abatement program. These
Yes.
homes would be LERTA.
Yes, when we will pull the building permit, the building code application has that application in it. And we do submit that with the building permit and then work with Mr. Graves back here, as I have worked with him recently on our Swatara Street homes that we finished to obtain.
Thank you. The next question is related to the affordable housing program. Mr. Knight mentioned that you will be participating in the program. Technically, it would only require one of the townhomes to be considered deemed affordable for our residents, but
They will all five will be affordable. All
Okay.
five will be sold to low to moderate income persons or families.
okay, just wanted to clarify that. And then the last question is maybe for the administration regarding the deemed approved deadline. We are hosting a special legislative session immediately following this work session. So I just wanted to know perhaps the urgency.
I understand it be May 2nd.
Okay, thank you. For everyone listening, May 2nd would be the deemed approved deadline. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Major.
Thank you. Just during your presentation, you noted that would be, I guess, the only potential eligible applicants for to purchase a home. Are they only first-time home buyers or just folks that fall into the low to moderate income category?
First time home buyers. And the definition, the legal definition that Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency uses is those that are buying their first home or who have not owned a home in the last 3 years. That's actually the IRS definition.
Okay. And then you noted about the building cost at about 225,000 per unit. Is that all in on what does that encompass? Is that just the building?
All inclusive, site work.
Okay.
A to Z, site work and construction.
Okay. And then the cost per square foot that you're looking at in terms of these townhomes?
Well, until we're really closer to starting it, I can't commit to that. I can just tell you what I experienced on Swatara Street with the last 3 homes that we built there. And we did get into those 1,600 square foot single family homes. They're detached.
Right.
And
These
in a
are
public bidding that we did in the spring of last year, we ended up at a cost of $237,000 for each one of those homes. I turned around, we sold them for 116 and 119. So you can see the amount of subsidy that we
Right.
put in to make it affordable.
right. And and that's what I'm just trying to think. I know you want to probably get it. The goal is to try to get it around 100, but just given the cost of building materials, the bidding process, we could end up
That could
in,
vary,
in
that could vary a little bit.
Right. Okay. All right. I think all my other questions have been asked, but thank you.
Well,
Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking on your website, you guys partner with the Habitat for Humanity, is that correct?
we did back in 2018 and 19, we did 3 homes on the 1500 block of Swatara Street together.
Okay.
Yes,
Neil, quick question. Would that?
that was the first and only time that we ever worked with them. It was a
Okay.
great opportunity. I was very proud that 2 nonprofits came together and worked and got 3 homes built here.
No, I think it's wonderful. I just want to make sure I stay out of any hot water. With that, being a board director, would that still ignite a conflict currently or?
We have no.
They're not in this project.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Just one last comment, if I may, council member, just to share with the council members, we did undertake a new program in June of last year. For many years, Tri-County Community Action Commission, who we would get confused with, did home buyer counseling in the city. And for whatever reason, that organization ceased to offer that. And we immediately sprang into action and took that on. We relocated our offices from 1514 Dairy Street. We're now located at 201 Locust. We're next to Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. And we have a beautiful community room on the first floor that we do offer one Saturday a month, an 8-hour HUD certified class that we make available to the city. The administration has been kind and been posting that on the website, and we've been getting a tremendous response. We typically have 30 individuals that attend that class. We just had one last Saturday. on a monthly basis. And of course, when they get that certificate, that makes them eligible for services, down payment closing cost assistance programs at the county and also PHFA offer. So I just wanted to share that with you, that we have undertaken that program also.
Thank you. So just as a reminder, this is a deemed approved May 2nd and council does not have meetings between now and May 2nd. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just for the public familiarity, public awareness, how do purchasers become aware of your properties once they're finalized?
One of the main opportunities is what I just shared with you. When we have folks come to our home by our counseling class, we talk extensively about the projects that we offer, the homes that we offer throughout the city and the surrounding area, and immediately work with folks to get them lined up and pre-approved with the lender to have that opportunity to buy a home.
Okay, so does anyone have any last minute questions?
I have one more question. From what you just said, I just had a little clarification I needed for it. So the individuals who can come to your first time home buyer meetings, do they have to qualify in a certain pay category? Does it have
Now,
to be?
anybody in any income category can attend the class,
Okay,
but it is really geared for the low to moderate, those that are 80% and less of the county median family income, to take advantage of our program, because that's our policy.
yeah,
Any of the other programs like the Dauphin County down payment closing cost assistance program, it only assists those that are 80% and less of the county median family income.
yeah, which is very needed, but I feel like right now with the prices going up so much, the middle class is not getting anything either, where they kind of need it too, but
Well, you would be
that's enough.
surprised right now, a single person can earn up to, with the low to moderate income
Mhm.
designation, can earn up to $52,000.
Okay, that
Still
is
be
different then.
considered low to moderate.
Oh, well,
So
that's good.
it's
That's
very
different.
deceiving.
Okay, so then that's where I'm hitting at, because I know when I try to get into the first time home buyer program, I was only making 45,000 with one child, a teacher at that, and I could not, they said I made too much. And I'm like, well, I don't think I made too much at all, but they said I made too much. So I am glad that has changed, that is needed, because that's not enough. So, okay, thank you.
Well,
Those are all of the questions. Thank you for the administration and the applicant. If resolution 37-2023 could be moved to the next legislative session.
Madam Chair, just for note, because it came up tonight, the LERTA program for Harrisburg expires December 31st, 2024. So we're going to start bumping up against projects that are in midstream. So just so people know about getting their applications in time, completed in time with the codes department or the for the building codes, because delays in that process can put you on the other side of eligibility.
You said that was LERTA, the LERTA program?
LERTA program by ordinance expires December 31st, 2024.
That concludes the business for the Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Chair Daniels. The final committee business we have before us this evening comes from the Parks, Recreation and Enrichment Committee. I will defer to our chair, Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, President Bowers, and good evening again to everybody. And do we have anybody from the administration to give our quarterly report for the Parks and Recreation and Enrichment Committee?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening. Can you please state your name and position with the city?
Sure. My name is David Baker. I am the Parks and Facilities Director for the City of Harrisburg, and I'd like to present to you our 2023 first quarter budget report. Maybe. Bear with me here. All right, so our Parks and Recreation projects that we have going on here, here's some information on our Chutes and Ladders Playground project. In the middle column there, you see the total cost in which the project is going for. And then we have a rough estimate, excuse me, of the ribbon cutting. We are really shooting for June 9th, but as everyone knows, if they've been following this project, it has been a little bit rocky. There's a lot of variables going on at the site. But as I said, we are really shooting for June 9th to be the completion date and to hopefully do a ribbon cutting. The phase 2 of the ADA parking lot expansion and the toddler playground, you can see the funding stream, which that is completely grant funded. And everyone can see what that is. I won't even try and say all the acronyms there. That project will start as soon as we've completed the Reservoir Park Chutes and Ladders project. So again, hopefully we can start breaking ground or start the process as soon after the June 9th deadline of the Chutes and Ladders project. The open space plan that we are trying to get accomplished here, and I've gone over this with council before. This should hopefully give us a very long-term path for the biggest or the most need throughout the city for the play structures for all of the children throughout the area. The funding from this was 50-50. Half was done through DCNR and the other half came out of the general fund. We hope to be completed with this by the end of 2023. Penn-Dolphin Playground, we had internal staff remove all of the unsafe play structures out there, and the dollar amount you see down below will be utilized for the addition of all the new play structures done by contractors. So this is in regards to our facilities maintenance program, or facilities maintenance department. The public safety building fire panel, you can see the cost of the fire panel there. We are right on budget for what was projected last year. And we hope to be completed with that by the second quarter. The fire panel itself was installed in 1982, and we are still using the original panel. So it is far surpassed its lifespan. The public safety building flooring, that project is complete. Everything was done, and it was done exactly on budget as well. The brownstone HVAC replacement, that project has been completed. It's been completed on budget, but we are working out a few minor bugs in that system. All in all, the project went as smooth as possible. The fire pump for the MLK. Again, that project, we are currently working on that with the Law Bureau, and the fire pump that we're using in the building right now was installed in 1982. I'm sorry, and the panel, I correct myself here, the fire panel was installed in 1978. Again, this is something that we should work with legal. Once we're done, we'll get that guy installed as well. MLK flooring. We're hoping to have that finished by the end of the second quarter. And as you can see, the amount estimated there. And then the public safety building, third floor cubicle expansion. This is something we're working with the police department. They're trying to utilize their space to the fullest to house certain county employees in their existing area instead of having to purchase new space in additional locations.
On April 1st, Parks and Recreation had our first annual Easter Bunny Blast at Sunshine Park. Several vendors were set up with giveaways and free activities for those in attendance. The department provided free food, crafts, giveaways, and most importantly, we had a special guest, the Easter Bunny, who was available for photos. The event was well received by the community. We estimate 200 to 300 in attendance. A good time was had by all.
The annual Ice and Fire Festival sponsored by M&T Bank was held on March 4th. Over 41,000 pounds of ice was used by Ice Concepts to create 65 ice sculptures, our most to date. The ice sculptures were displayed in neighborhoods throughout the city, including downtown, Midtown, City Island, Italian Lake, Reservoir Park, and Shiloh. The Downtown Street Festival featured live ice carvings, fire dancers, fire pits and s'mores, a giant ice slide, performances by local school and community groups, an artist market, vendors, and much more. Restaurants throughout the city offered ice and fire themed drink specials, and other businesses hosted free kids activities to engage with attendees. The Broad Street Market also hosted the inaugural chili cook-off, where over 300 attendees sampled and voted on chilies made by 6 market vendors. The market was able to raise over $3,000 as part of this fundraiser, and Aunt Marie's Haitian Kitchen took home both the People's Choice and Judge's Choice awards. We've received overwhelmingly positive feedback from both vendors and attendees. One attendee said, quote, "Came up from Virginia and had the best time. You have a truly amazing and beautiful city." This festival is a great way for attendees of all ages from across the region to explore our city as they browse the ice sculptures on display and participate in other festival attractions. We look forward to next year's event on March 2nd, 2024.
City of Harrisburg offers 2 assistance programs in regards to moving and pruning street trees. As we come out of performance season, we have already spent approximately 25% of these funds. As of March 30th, $32,530 to assist low-income homeowners with 4 tree removals and 5 prunings amongst 7 addresses. $24,994 has been used to assist senior homeowners with 4 tree removals and 12 prunings amongst 15 addresses. These requests do tend to increase as we move through summer and fall towards the dormant season at the beginning of winter.
Youth Day Care is presented by United Way, the parents and families that help us out our maintenance department. United Way and its local high school students to volunteer and prepare City Island for the upcoming season. A couple hundred kids form in Friday mornings to weed, mulch, paint, plant flowers, and enjoy a girls' night. This is an event that is highly anticipated by the park maintenance staff, City Island members, United Way, and the local high school students.
All right, that concludes my 2023 first quarter report.
Thank you, Director Baker. There were definitely and truly some great highlights in there with all the great programs that the city is doing. Before I pass it on to my colleagues, I just had one question and then one comment. I noticed on the last slide, all the high schools that participated, getting City Island ready for the up and coming opening season. I did not see Harrisburg School District. Do you know why they didn't participate?
I think they were there.
I just said Side Tech, which
Yeah, well,
is a
Side Tech-
part of Harrisburg School District, but
So
is-
the United Way heads up the recruitment of all of the schools. And I do believe they, as each year, they requested Harrisburg. And I do believe they turned it down this year, or they did not get back to the United Way.
would you be able to get me that information? Let me know what the true response was,
Yeah,
just so I can see how they were, how they publicized the event and if the Harrisburg, if the high school got it. Because they're in two different sections of the city and they have two different principals and sometimes they don't
yeah.
get the same information.
Yep, I can contact the United Way and see if they can get that back to us. And it's something they do every year, so I'm pretty sure they reached out to the right people, but I'm happy to get you that info.
Yes, please. And also about Cougar Academy. That's another school that's there too. I think they're both online or they're inside of the admin building on Lincoln on State Street. But I didn't see any representation or saying that they were there. I just don't want people to think that Sci Tech's the only high school in the city. No, CASA's there too. The Performing Arts School that's downtown. Thank you. Yeah, just please let me know, making sure we're getting to all of the schools within the city. My other question was, I did see a lot of, programs going on that you presented on the slide. I think not a question, but more of a comment. I feel like with the up and coming year, want to see a little bit more going on, especially geared towards our youth, even our young adults, where Parks and Rec can help. I feel like we have a lot going on in the city, but then not enough coming from the city and from the Parks and Recreation Department when it comes to some more with our youth and our young adults. So I'm happy to help with any ideas on that, but I think hearing from the residents, they definitely want to see, and I say it all the time, ice skating, but they do. They want it. They're asking for it.
We were actually talking about that this morning. So
Okay,
we're
wow.
trying to figure out logistics and I mean, this is a great avenue to say something. We're looking for vendors that are interested in hosting something along those lines. Because if we were to do that, we can assist them, but it would then put the actual act of the ice skating on that individual that's interested. If you have an entrepreneur to do something, then we wouldn't need to worry about finding internal staff to oversee that type of a process. We could have someone who has a passion for that. I think it would be a fast and pretty smooth transition, hopefully, if someone is interested.
Yeah, I think we can do it as a city too. I know we had a resolution, I saw it, where we did have an ice skating. I think it went up for the ice and fire event. I think it was Olympic, something. I don't remember the whole exact name, but we do have it. It was passed before they came out, they set up a rink. So I know it's possible, and I'm sure we could get some people to help us with it. I think we just need to start it. So I hope we can get that going. I know that's been in the talk for the past 2 years now, but we haven't had any movement on it. So I would like to see some more movement on it, and the residents would too. So, please keep me posted on your next steps on that, and hopefully we can get something for next winter.
Right.
That's all my questions and comments. I'm going to start here to my left. Do you have any, Councilman Lawson?
Thank you, Councilman Ross. And thank you, Director Baker, for the presentation. I thought it was great seeing the kids getting their face painted in all the events. So that was fun. That was fun. The one question that did pop to my mind as I saw the report, just because it's seems to be a hot topic lately, was the trees and tree trimming. One question that I have is, I see low income assistants, and I also see senior assistants. Are they of the same pot or are they two separate?
Yep, so we have a low income assistance, which comes out of the general fund. And then we have the senior tree assistance, which comes out of the game. I'm drawing a blank here. Help me out. It'll come to me here. It comes from a different pot of money. It's
Okay.
for the, what is it, the gambling?
Gaming?
Yeah. As I said, they're two separate pots. I apologize. I can't think of the name of the other pot. But it'll come to me just in a awkward time, I'm sure. But yes, they are two separate pots. So yeah.
All right, and do we have any possibility of increasing our capacity for that this year? I know that there are some talks on the table with the ARPA funding with trying to put something there. Just because I think we had probably more residents needing help than we had funds that were available to us.
Absolutely. So that would really be up to council if you would allocate funds for something of that nature, but I would hope so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. Vice President Green.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions. The first is, how do we advertise our events? So for instance, like the first annual Easter event, how do we advertise that so that the residents know?
Thanks to my staff, which I have to say, I appreciate everything they've done with this. They've just sent me a message. It's the host municipal fee. So from the incinerator. So yeah, the way we advertise, so we go all out with advertisement. Typically, we will send out mailers in the trash mailer if possible. We do email blasts if we can. We publish it on the Parks and Rec webpage. Matt will publish it on the city's page. It'll be on Facebook, and a lot of times we will have rangers or staff go door to door if possible, to give all as much info as we can, as much notice as possible.
Thank you for that. And then also, what are some of your key goals for Q2?
In which aspect, what area are you thinking?
It's your department. You tell me.
Well,
Just some key highlights, things that you look forward to doing in the next quarter.
yeah, I think we're really gonna be ramping up with Parks and Rec, and this year we are ahead of the curve when it comes to the hiring process, which is something to be proud of. Last year we were really struggling, and this year we've hit, I'd say, probably the 80th percentile of our hiring amounts already. We have, I think, 15 or 16 lifeguards that we're getting into the process already. And again, nothing's set in stone. We're still working on background checks and with HR. But we're really moving forward in that aspect. We just had a team meeting this morning with all the different departments, and we mainly focused on Parks and Rec because that's kind of where everyone's passion is, no matter what area you're in. It's all about the residents and focuses a lot on the kids. So we came up with a lot of ideas. The meeting was supposed to be about an hour. It lasted almost 4. But there's a lot of really good information that was being disseminated at that meeting. So I'm really hoping, to your point, that we can ramp up some of our Parks and Rec programming side of things. I'm hoping that we can establish some possible grants for Parks and Rec to give us the funding stream necessary. Because in a lot of areas we have ideas and we have people that want to do things. We just don't always have the finances to have those seen through. And then with parks maintenance, we just really hope to be able to keep our head above water. It's always about just having enough staff to just maintain what we absolutely have to, and making sure that everything runs and everyone stays safe throughout the year.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Just kind of a follow-up to that. What ages are you hiring for? Like, what's the minimum age for like Parks and Rec if a youth is listening and interested in applying?
I have the ages written down here. I think it's 15 is the youngest we can take them at. And then any age after that is fine. I would actually push if we have any seniors, any retired individuals, they'd be great to have. They have a lot of life skills that would be really beneficial to us. And we do have a pretty flexible schedule. So if anyone, any teachers that are looking for it, they'd be a real catch for us as a city. With
Thank
their
you.
skill set. Yep.
And where would they find the applications?
So applications can be found on the Parks and Rec webpage. If you go to the city's website, that will take you to the Parks website as well. And you can also go in person to the Reservoir Park Mansion if you'd like to do that.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President Green. President Bowers?
Thank you. I have a few personnel related questions for the first quarter. A question regarding special events, and then I think a survey that is active now, if I'm not mistaken. So first, the first vacancy I'm inquiring about is the crew leader 3. This was a role that is supposed to be integral to servicing the city's parks and green spaces. And I know you, during budget season, we're anticipating having this vacancy filled for this season. So has that?
Yep, I would, to be 100% sure, I'd have to check with our records because we have been doing lots of hiring and people have been moving around in positions. There's a lot of people that are moving up within our bargaining unit positions. So again, to be 100% sure, but to the best of my knowledge, we have filled the crew leader 3 position. There might be some final processes that need to be taken, but I'm pretty sure it is filled.
Okay, the next one is the Parks and Rec Assistant Manager vacancy.
That has been filled. That was an internal, we had a bargaining unit member that applied for that position and was picked for it.
Thank you. The Community Events Coordinator.
That position is filled as well. We are waiting for that individual to finish background checks and hopefully we can get started as soon as possible.
Okay, the 2 Laborer 2 vacancies.
Those, I believe we have 1 open Laborer 2 position still.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, Laborer 2 vacancies. We should only have 1 Laborer 2 vacancy open.
Okay. And has a new park ranger been hired?
We did hire a park ranger and we are waiting for them to start shortly.
Okay. Oh, I have another question. $75,000 was allocated for summer programming and an after-school program for their field trips. Just wondering if you could speak to preparation for the summer programming and the after-school program.
So the after-school programming we do with it's like a quasi third-party setup where we do have the third party who oversees the majority of it, and then we have internal staff that touch base on a daily basis to make sure that everything is running to plan. And then with the programming itself, we are still in the works. It's kind of fluid right now, but we are working with individuals that we use year after year and making sure that we're touching base with them and that they still have availability to come out and work with the kids throughout the summer.
Okay. My question related to special events. I saw the number of donations that are received for the events. So our events are revenue neutral, would you say?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that in the event anyone had questions. And then my last question is relative to a survey is it still active regarding the playgrounds right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and how can people participate?
So again, with that survey, we sent that out in the trash mailer. Now, some people don't get that. They get it's all online payment. And we are trying to figure out how we can reach those individuals. We also have the survey up on the website. And I believe you can at least get on the city's website, which takes you to the Parks and Rec webpage where you can take that survey.
Is there a deadline?
So as of now, we don't have a deadline. The sooner we get the survey in, the better, just because it gives us more ability to utilize everyone's information in the conceptual phase. After we hit a certain point, I'll let you guys know. We'll disseminate that information to the public. There will be a cutoff date for it, but as of now, we don't want to say, we don't want your information after X date, because we don't know about the how fast we'll be moving with the conceptual planning.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, President Bowers. Councilman Majors.
Thank you. The questions I have were already asked, so no questions right now. Thank you. But I will follow up on an email that I sent earlier today, but that's not for, was it anything to do with quarter 1? Thanks.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Daniels, do you have any questions?
Yeah, this is just for the public information and edification. Could you explain to us what the purpose of the swans at Italian Lake were, how long they'll be there for? And yeah, and that's just for public information, and that's my only question.
Sure. So the swans at Italian Lake were they were really just meant to be an upgrade. Years past, they have always had recycled soda bottles out there, and someone will tie a string to the soda bottle. It used to be a contractor. We now do this work in-house. The contractor would tie the string to the soda bottle, and then the string would go down to an aeration pipe. That aeration tube would sit at the bottom of the lake, and then there would be no worries of it freezing. Whenever summer comes and we start undoing all our winterization, we take the hoses, we plug them back into the aeration devices, and then we start running the fountains again. We thought this year, instead of using old soda bottles, we would get some floating swans, and that's the point of why the floating swans are out there at Italian Lake. It's just purely so we can find the aeration tubes to plug the aerators back in. And those should be out of service and in storage in roughly 1 week's period.
Is that it, Councilwoman Daniels? Okay. Councilman Rodriguez, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair Ross.
Mhm.
Thank you, Director Baker, for being here this evening. It's good news that we're still utilizing the mailers in the bill system. I just pray we can utilize that whenever there's a tax increase or a road closure. This way it can continue to benefit the residents. Councilman Lawson had alluded to what pot the funding comes out of as far as the tree program. What would be the process for both low income and seniors to get their trees removed?
So typically we have individuals either come into the Reservoir Park Mansion in person, or they call into the Parks and Rec office, or downtown, they'll call 311. Predominantly, that's what we see. And then when they call into the office, we will ask them a few different questions about low income. We will ask them to give us some proof that they actually meet the HUD guidelines for low income. And then we will start the process where we'll send out one of the city foresters. They'll assess the tree, see what processes need to be completed with that tree. And depending on what their assessment is, which both we and the homeowner receive, then we move forward at that point.
Thank you for that. And for any residents watching, if they were interested in the program, could you give them the information so they know where to go to apply?
Right. So I think the easiest way for most people would be to call 311, and they will route you to the proper place in the city, which is up in the parks office downtown. Or if they want to go in person, they can go to the Reservoir Park Mansion. If they would like to do it online, they can visit our website, and there's more contact info there.
Thank you for that. And what are the procedures of your internal staff, as you put it? I'm touching base with the after school program. Is there metrics per student, surveys, pre or post test? Are we accumulating insurance clearances, certifications of any kind?
Yes, so we do work with our human resources department on that aspect, and we make sure that we do follow all the national, local guidelines. That
Mandated reporter certifications, the whole nine?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. The brownstone HVAC system I see came over a little bit over $85,000. I could be naive to this. Why was the public safety HVAC system so much more?
So believe it or not, the brownstone HVAC system was much more expensive than I thought it would be. It's the process in which we had to get an engineer to do drawings, to write a bid package, and then we went through our processes internally for bidding out the job. You know, due to the scope of work, it was kind of excessive price wise, but that's what the engineering firm said that, you know, we'd have to have in a building that size. As far as the public safety building, it is much larger than the brownstone. So there's many air handlers, and then there's lots of mechanical systems. So if you had to kind of to look at the two, the brownstone would be like 2 or 3 residential houses, and the public safety building would be, you know, 50 residential houses. So that's why the cost difference there.
Okay, pretty much the size per square foot.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. And just finally, if Madam Chair wouldn't mind, sometimes when we speak of park restorations or grant funding, it can get a bit cloudy, not only for residents, but I know even for me being a new council member. Is there any way we could retain maybe a schematic or a report of current park projects and where the funding would come from, just so we could kind of keep up with things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ms. Vollmer actually has she has all the grants tracked.
Okay.
So if it's general fund, we have that information for you as well, but the majority of all of our park projects are almost completely, if not majority, funded by grants.
Awesome.
And I know she does keep track of all that very closely.
Park specific, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Thank you. No further questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. I just have one follow-up question or clarification. With the after-school program, I know you and I have spoke about it before, but it was a while ago. Who is able to go to the after-school program and how is it publicized? Because I don't ever really hear anything about it.
So, I mean, that's one of those things that we want to work on. You have to be a resident, you know, to go to the after-school program, but it is very small. We don't have the capacity for lots of kids in our particular after-school program. And as you can see, the dollars that we allocate to the after-school program, it's really minimal. We would love to be able to upgrade the program, increase the staff, increase the capacity. But right now it's a pretty small amount of people that participate in that program.
Where is the program located at?
I can get you all the details of what we're going
Okay.
to do this year. And
Yes.
then we can go over, because there's a lot of different things that we can kind of drill down on with that specific program.
Okay, yeah, that would be nice, because I don't feel like I ever see any money asked for it in the budget, not to the extent that I feel like it could be, you know, with that being an after-school program, because a lot of residents are asking for not just after-school programs, but before too, because right at this time, right now, they don't have a lot within the school district, but I feel like the city and the school district can work together on a lot of these aspects. So if you could get us all the logistics on the after-school program, where is it held? How is it publicized? You know, the
Madam
staff,
Ch-
who's the third party staff that is?
Madam Chair, I was even going to say,
Oh.
whatever building's being utilized, that's up to code and up to par
Yeah,
as well.
that too.
To
Thank
avoid
you.
any liability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are using the Ellison Hill Community Center as of last year for the program. So as far as code goes, I personally don't know exactly if we're up to code there. But I'm sure that's something our codes department could look into if it was a necessity.
Yes, please. Yes. And just get us that information. And then, you know, I think we would all like to see that program up to par and make sure it's, you know, our residents, especially the youth, are getting the utilization they need out of it. So, are there any other questions? And did you have anything else you wanted to add to the quarterly report, Director Baker?
I think just something good for the public to know is we'll be doing our pool opening. We're hoping for 6/10. The summer program, we're hoping to start that on 6/12. And the first movie night of the year, we're hoping to do that on 6/30.
Thank you.
Sure.
So while you're here, we'll just move into the resolution for Parks and Recreation Committee, Resolution 41 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, can you please read that in?
Resolution 41, 2023, a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Navarro and Wright Consulting Engineers Incorporated to design universally accessible ADA compliant playgrounds and other amenities for the 7th and Radnor Park, Burgess Park, Wilson Playground, and Reservoir Park.
Thank you, Mr. Truesdale. Is there anybody here from either the Navarro and Wright Consulting Engineer Company or the administration to speak on this resolution?
Thank you, Councilmember Ross. My name is Paul Navarro, and I'm the president and CEO of Navarro and Wright Consulting Engineers, Inc. And we're very happy and excited about participating in this project. Craig Bachek from our firm was the architect of the proposal, and he is an architect, landscape architect by profession. So he's going to be joining us remotely. There he is.
Okay.
To answer any technical questions. I'm here just to let you know that we're committed and dedicating a team of professionals to execute this project in a relatively short window. It needs to go to construction here according to the schedule by August of this year. So we'll be working together with Rebecca and the Parks and Rec team to get this started almost immediately. So hopefully we'll have action on this later today. I can let Craig share some of the details of the proposal or answer any questions that the board might have for our team.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so please introduce yourself and your position with the company again, just for everyone to hear. And then, yes, please give us some more details on the resolution. Oh, yes, on Zoom. I don't think he can. Oh, there we go. Yes, I'm sorry. Hold on, Mr. Maycheck, and I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, we can't hear you yet. Give us one moment.
Sure. There we go.
Okay, can you please start over from the top?
Absolutely. Good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Again, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Craig Bachek. I'm the senior landscape architect with Navarro and Wright. I have had the good fortune of working recently with Rebecca Bulmer on the Harrisburg South 14th Street project. I have a long history with the city in terms of past projects. We are thrilled to be being considered for these 3 parks, 7th and Radnor, and the playground areas there in Fields, the Wilson Park area, and Reservoir Park have a rich history. As council may know, this goes back to Warren Manning and the original master plan for the city that goes back to the turn of the century that resulted in the green belt and multiple things. But Harrisburg's history in parks is very rich. So our approach on this proposal is really, great parks don't happen by accident. There are parks that happen because they're planned by and create great designs that involve inclusive designs and involving the community. And I think we did a pretty thoughtful job of developing an approach for all 3 parks with a very aggressive schedule of both design and getting to the projects out to bid. Our proposal is sort of broken into the 3 parks, but then 3 categories: a 30% submission with deliverables, a 60% submission, and 90% with deliverables at each of those milestones. The goal is 30% in May, 60% in June, 90% in July, and having bid documents ready to go in July so that the project can be completed by the end of the year, as required by some of the funding constraints. So, we're I think we have a great history of planning experience when it comes to recreation. One of the key elements to this is also traffic study and traffic impacts. Our team consultant is Trans Systems, who has a rich history of transportation planning and impact studies. And we've also teamed with Windward Engineering, who will be our lighting consultant relative to each of these parks and the ball fields in particular at Radnor. So we're very excited about the potential for this project to be a huge success for the city in a very short time frame. I'd be happy to address any questions the council may have. I do think that the public outreach component of this will also be very important. We look forward to meeting with Parks and Rec and discussing the most effective way to do that. We anticipate it to be both an online interactive process, but also in-person meetings in the neighborhoods and developing feedback from the communities as we develop these plans in its early stages, all the way through developing the final plans. So I'm happy to answer any questions council may have relative to our proposal, and we're anxious to get started.
Thank you, Mr. Baycheck. Am I saying your last name right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
You're welcome. I just had two questions. One is a clarification. You expressed about the bids. Did you say they would be going out in June?
No,
July.
we're looking at having
July.
bid documents completed by July.
Oh.
In our proposal, and the project's out to bid in July of this year for completion by the end.
Okay, thank you very much. And this may just be for me so I can understand. I know you are an engineering firm, and I know we have Daywood. So just wondering, Dawood, just wondering why we didn't use them, why we're using Navarro, just for my own understanding. Feels like we're paying twice, but I don't know. But this is a grant, but I'm just.
Yep, so we followed all of the city purchasing guidelines whenever we did this. So the interested parties put their applications in, and then we graded everything. After all the gradings were done, Navarro and Wright were the winning grades. So they were then awarded the contract to do this process.
Okay.
So Dawood is providing project management services for this grant for us. So they're helping us do all the things that we have to do, like getting different people on board, getting Civitas on board, doing the design RFP. But so Dawood is kind of being more of like a sort of a PM oversight, but the design RFP went out for firms that could actually do, and you know what, it took me a while to learn this, a lot of time to learn this, but like engineering and design is kind of the same thing. They're sort of like bywords for the same thing, but we had to put out a public bid for the design.
Okay. And like you're saying, once you put out the public bid and you graded it, Navarro came up higher than Daywood.
Yeah, I mean, just to Rebecca's point, so the way I guess I'd look at it, I'm trying not to confuse you guys. If you look at Dawood's more like a main contractor, and then they're not a main contractor, but they're overseeing a lot of things. They're helping us out with a lot of processes. And we need someone to specifically focus on a large aspect of these projects. And that's what this firm will be doing. So Dawood is doing one portion, but it's not this portion at all. And for this grant, correct me if I'm wrong here, we had to go through this process legally to get to this point.
Okay, I understand.
We couldn't just give it to Dawood.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
all right. So is Navarro's going to be paid out of the grant money? Okay. When Dawood does some of the parts for you, are they being paid out of the budget or out of the grant money?
Also grants. So
Okay.
so we've got different buckets. This is a weirdly complicated.
Mhm.
We've got like horizontal bars and vertical bars. But yes, so Dawood, we have a budget for Dawood, and they're being paid for very specific line items that have to do with the project management. And but they're being paid from the grant. Civitas also, which is our CDBG and HUD consultant, they're also being paid out of the grant. And then Navarro, and I hope I get a chance to say all the wonderful things I would love to say about Navarro when I get a chance. They will also be paid out of the grant budget as our engineer designer. So that's all the design costs. And that's a big chunk of it, because I mean, that's really where it lives and dies.
Okay.
But I've worked with, when I first started here in February of 2018, my whole job was to work with the sinkhole project, which I was just sort of like dropped into the deep end, and that's a big, crazy project. And Navarro, and specifically Mr. Paycheck, they were the people that that I worked with the most. And I cannot say enough good things about how terrific he is, how great their firm is. I couldn't have done it without him. I mean, I could call him at 7 in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, just ultra super professional. And I was not involved at all in the RFP process for the designer that was chosen.
I was just gonna say that.
Dave always tells me not to overshare, and I always overshare anyway, but sorry. But
So no bias here.
no, and they really truly none. Like, I had no idea who had applied or whatever, but I was thrilled when I saw who was chosen, and I can't say enough good things about these guys, so.
Thank you for clarifying that, just trying to understand the pieces of it. I don't have any further questions right now, so I'm gonna start to my far left with Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm still kind of working through the motions. I had some questioning right in line with Councilwoman Rawls. So just trying to decipher it and take it all in, but I may come back around to me. Thank you.
That's fine, just let me know. Councilwoman Daniels, do you have any questions?
May have mentioned it, but I missed it. So what's the total amount for the grant?
It's 13 million and change, and I know that sounds rude. I don't mean to sound rude. It's 13 million 005,733.
And then this is for design for only these parks. Is there any chance that it will lead into other parks and playgrounds?
No, so it's for 4 parks in particular, and that 13 million is not just for the design. The design piece of it is one piece of that 13 million. So it's for 4 parks. This particular contract that we're talking about is for 3 of those parks.
And I think that was it. I just wanted the clarification. So when do we expect to get a decision on the grant, and when do we expect the money to come in? And when do we expect to use the money?
So we have the grant has been awarded. It's a reimbursement grant, so we can only draw down the money as we spend it, and then we have to submit reimbursement requests that would comprise invoices and canceled checks, images, and that sort of thing, so that we can only draw it down as we expend it.
So what time frame does that look like?
So it's interesting, this particular grant.
So the timetable that's in the RFP is what we're expected to stick to. So I think we already cleared that that there was a certain percentage that was going to be done each month leading up until, I believe it was August was the statement.
Point of order, I believe the councilwoman was asking specific, just for clarity.
So when the original timeframe of this grant, when we applied for it, we knew it was going to be super tight. And the original end of the period of performance was December 31st, 2023. That, thank goodness, has been extended. And also, so there's a lot of different moving parts. So the grant money actually comes from HUD to DCED, and then we are a sub of DCED. So whatever DCED's requirements are from HUD become our requirements. HUD has released DCED from a lot of the most onerous requirements. So now we can ask for an extension for at least a year, probably 2 years. So it'll be like 2024, 2025 that we have to spend this money, and we've all holding our breath for the last whatever 6 months.
So that's the regulatory provision under which we're able to spend the money. I'm just asking on the project management side, when do we expect to actually have something when do we expect the monies to come in and when do we expect the products to start being delivered?
Okay, so that,
Perhaps
that'll,
the
I'll give you.
clarification that's helpful is this, the letter literally came today, changing the deadline.
Neil, just come to, make sure you come to the mics.
So literally, the letter came today, changing the deadline from, we had to spend 80% by June of 2023, which we couldn't meet, and then satisfy the rest of it by December. So literally, I expect by next Wednesday, everyone will be regrouping based on HUD's changing the deadlines and removing them as of today. So then we have to go to DCD and talk about a realistic timetable. So I think there's going to be a rational regrouping of how to do this, without, we were doing it with much haste, which is always dangerous with federal money. And so now there's going to be a chance to be a little more deliberate. And I just expect people are going to get back to the table and say, if we didn't have a gun to our head, what steps other than what we've taken would we take? Sort of just do it in a rational way that government's supposed to. So I think the fair answer is we don't know. If we were doing it on the original timetable, we're running to December 31st. That's what we were running to.
Will there be a point at which we will have some sense of?
For you, this is the beginning of $13 million. More things are coming here. And I think every time it comes here, you're going to have more information because it's going to get developed along the way.
Well, DCED has already told us that they will.
Can you come to the mic, please, Ms. Ballmer, just so we can hear you? It's okay. It's just gonna be a lot of interchanging. All right.
So we already know from DCED that they will extend us to 2024 and they will probably extend us to 2025 if we need that. But there were two different requirements. One is the period of performance end and the other is spend 80% by June 3rd of this year. So the 80% has, thank God, been, HUD has been able to, it's a legislative thing. So HUD has been allowed to now let all their state awardees out of that requirement. So then they can let us out of that requirement. That's a different thing from the period of performance. Yeah. So right now our period of performance end is December 31, 2023. We've been invited by DCED to submit an amendment request for an extension for 1 year. And they've already also told me that they'll probably extend it by 2 years if we want them to, if we need them to. Your question of when do we get the money? It just depends on when we do the work and submit the reimbursement requests and send a formal request that says, hey, we've done this work. Here are our invoices. Here are our canceled checks. Please reimburse us for XYZ piece. It's not like it's a one and done. We do it along the way. So it's just sort of when we have enough expenses that we can send to them to get reimbursed.
If I
It
could
looks
just
like-
add to
yes,
that,
thank you.
I mean, with respect to proposal from Navarro and Wright, our fee is in the range of $545,555 for the scope of work that was included in this proposal. We will begin as soon as we are given a notice to proceed, and the billings here will be 30% of this contract with the 30% submittal, 60%, another 30% with the 60%, and another 30 with the 90%, and then the 10% would be the final for the design phase.
How long do you think that phase is?
Well, we have it scheduled for middle of July to be finished with the design. Again, if there's an extension on the timeline for spending the money, we can actually get a little bit more time to properly plan. I mean, delivering just light fixtures today can take months. So, that's good to hear that we've been given a little bit more time.
No, you didn't hear it. Push.
Well, as far as design, that's, within our control, but there's a lot of things here outside of a lot of people's control, contractors and so forth. So hopefully that.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you so much. That's it for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Majors, do you have any questions?
Thank you. No questions.
Okay, thank you. President Bowers, do you have any questions? My apologies.
Thank you. Thank you all for the clarification. My questions were related to the traffic study and the kickoff meetings, but I think they might be premature at this point, so I will ask at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Vice President Green, do you have any questions? Your pen
Thank you.
does.
I don't have any questions at this moment.
Okay, Councilman Lawson, do you have any questions?
Thank you. No questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't have any further questions either. You know, I think just ready for everything to be done. I think we have a lot of things in the works, but I know, you know, things take time. I know we got a lot of big things coming up. We got a lot of grant money. And sometimes it just feels like it's sitting there looking at us, but I don't know. I guess we're just gonna really have to be patient, but also push. So thank you for everything. I don't have any other questions either. I do recommend this to go on the agenda for our next legislative session, please. Resolution 41 of 2023. And that closes the business of Parks and Recreation and Enrichment.
Thank you very much, Chair
Thank you.
Ross. Thank you. We will now move to public comment. Oh. Thank you, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Baycheck, thank you. We didn't
Thank
forget
you.
about you. I just.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
You do the same. We will now move to public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes. Per usual, please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. You will have 2 minutes to share your comment. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. I will begin to my far right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, I will move to the middle section. Seeing and hearing no one, anyone to my left?
Good evening, Council. Pam Parson, Holly Street. I'm going to give you, I came here with some other things that I wanted to talk about, but instead I'm just going to set that aside and give you some feedback on tonight's meeting. Again, sound is so important, and I heard very little of what Ms. Gray had to say. I think we just need to do a better job at making sure that people use microphones, even if it means we have to remind them again and again. Also, as part of the Budget and Finance Committee quarterly report, there was a question that Councilman Rodriguez answered at the end, asked at the end, and Ms. Rebecca answered. And I had and it was all in acronyms, and I had absolutely no idea what you were talking about. And I come to these meetings pretty frequently, so I'm fairly certain that someone who's watching at home wouldn't have understood. Also tonight, while you were talking about things, I was using the city's website to try to look things up. And again, I just have to say that the website is so unintuitive. You just, like, I had difficulty finding the Parks and Recs things that you were referring to. It's not on the homepage, and you have to know to click here to go to, you have to go to city government, and then you have to go to Parks and Rec, and then under that. And so it's so difficult to find things. So I think when we talk about how people, we also need to think about how people receive information, not necessarily just always how we give them information, but how they receive it.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Parsons.
that's pretty hard.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to my left that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, the time is 8:19 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn our work session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We stand adjourned. I'd like to move right into our special legislative session if there are no objections. Okay, the time is 8:19 p.m. I would like to call our special legislative session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Lawson,
Here.
Mr. Majors,
Here.
Ms. Rose,
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present, thank you. I will lead the invocation this evening, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Lawson. I'd like to ask everyone to please keep the following residents, families, and friends in your thoughts and prayers: Mr. Robert Baylor, Miss Lois Henry, Miss Emma Buchanan, Miss Beulah Bass, Mr. Kendrick White, Miss Deborah L. Porter, Mr. Kenneth Blackwell, Miss Florentina Gentry, and my neighbor Poppy. If we could all please share in a moment of silence for these residents and their vivid memories. Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Lawson. Councilman Lawson.
Good. Everyone who's able to stand, please.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. We will now move to courtesy of the floor, similar to our last meeting. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. You will have 2 minutes to share your comment, and Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. This time, just for some variation, I'll begin to my left. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment?
Yep, this is part 2. Pam Parson, Holly Street. One of the things that I was doing on the website, since we were talking about trees, is I was looking at the approved tree list. And there's a lot of native trees on that list. And interestingly enough, most of those trees are available for free through the 10 Million Tree Project. And I am part of distributing those trees. And we've just finished our 2nd cycle. And the only thing that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation asks is that you give them the location of the tree so that they can GIS map it. But an individual is allowed to plant those trees in either private space, at a worship space, or in a public space. And while we are waiting for the Memorial Garden in Reservoir Park to be ready to be planted, there are trees that people got last year that are being overwintered, that were overwintered at the bridge, that are ready to be planted, and they all were free, and people got them through the 10 Million Tree Project, and they were delivered to the bridge to be cared for until they can be in the ground. So there are actually some things out there that wouldn't cost you or residents anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my right? Seeing and hearing no one, we'll move forward with our meeting agenda. The first resolution for consideration this evening is Resolution 37 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 37. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Here we go. Resolution 37, 2023, a resolution approving the preliminary final land development, lot consolidation and subdivision plan for 2151 to 2161 North Fourth Street, submitted by Gary Lanker with Tri-County HDC to consolidate and re-subdivide the various lots comprising the project site into 5 separate parcels on which affordable townhomes will be constructed along with associated improvements.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 37 of 2023?
I have a comment, Madam President.
Yes.
I just appreciate the developers taking MBE inclusion as a definite possibility, and I look forward to the project once it's finished. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 37 of 2023? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Truesdale, please call the vote.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Resolution 37, 2023 passes by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. The final resolution for consideration this evening is Resolution 41 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 41, 2023, a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Navarro and Wright Consulting Engineers Incorporated to design universally accessible ADA compliant playgrounds and other amenities for the 7th and Radar Park, Gorgas Playground, Wilson Playground, and Reservoir Park.
Thank you. That's 7th and Radnor Park. Just wanted to clarify that. Council members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 41 of 2023?
I just had a comment with the engineering company because I know that it was a little bit concerning that we have one and we're hiring another one, but just in looking them up, they come with good feedback. They have a good diverse complement, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I just know for me, it was just a little confusing. But after looking at your webpage and reading some feedback and ratings, it looked very exciting. So thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Are there any other additional questions, comments, or concerns related to Resolution 41 of 2023?
Just a brief comment. Just wanted to thank Navarro Wright for being here and the information that we received earlier, knowing that we're going to have a little bit more of a runway to be able to address a lot of these issues. I think is why we didn't have as many questions this evening, but look forward to getting involved in the community feedback and input portion when the design phase does begin, because I know these parks are in great need of having this additional accessibility, and we want to make sure that the community has input and feedback on what that looks like. So just thank you and look forward to putting forward a vote on this. Thank you, President Bowers.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay.
Just to echo the sentiments of Councilman Majors and Councilwoman Rawls. But also it'd be great to have some kind of a schematic that would indicate like DAW's responsibility as opposed to subcontractees moving forward, just so we have clarity, similar to with the parks and where the buckets of money comes from. I think it would just help us on council decipher it a bit better, but thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Seeing and hearing no other questions or comments, Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the vote?
Ms. Daniels,
Yes, and
Good night.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes.
Resolution 41, 2023 passes by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Is there any old business for discussion, council members?
I didn't have any old business, but I did forget, for Mr. Director Baker, if, remembering to send us the things for the after-school program. I don't know if I said that at the end. Thank you. That was it. I guess that kind of was old business. We talked about it, but,
No, it was.
okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that the quarterly reports that you hear for 2022 and those that we've received thus far for 2023 are available on the city's website. If you go harrisburgpa.gov, the top left-hand corner, under Government Elected Officials, under the Office of City Council, scroll down, you'll see a blue banner that notes city codes and ordinances. That will take you to e-codes, and they are listed under miscellaneous documents. So everyone can view those. Is there any new business for discussion?
Yes, Madam President.
Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
On the public safety end, I just wanted to announce that within a few days, we will be announcing this year's Hotspot Saturdays dates. And I look forward to working with our Public Works Department and Chair Lawson, as well as the rest of council and the mayor's office to try to beat the 10 tons of trash we removed last year from the city of Harrisburg. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any other new business for discussion, council members? I have one note before we adjourn. On Saturday, April 22nd, 2023 at 2 p.m., please join Harrisburg City Council for a ceremonial street renaming ceremony in honor of the late Reverend Billy Gray. This ceremony will occur in front of the Camp Curtin YMCA located at 2135 North 6th Street. Just as a reminder, Harrisburg City Council unanimously approved Resolution 59 of 2022, recognizing the 600 block of Woodbine Street as the Reverend Billy Gray Way. The street signs will be located at the corners of 6th and Woodbine Street and 6th and Forest Streets surrounding the Camp Curtin YMCA. Reverend Billy Gray was a leader. He served as the first Black lifeguard for the YMCA, the former interdenominational conference president, and a Boy Scout troop leader. Billy Gray was a strong advocate of education. He provided opportunities for Harrisburg students to tour historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs. Reverend Billy Gray was an athlete, and he was a Golden Glove national champion. So please join us again that Saturday, April 22nd at 2 p.m. in front of the Camp Curtin YMCA. The time is 8:32 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.